Okay. So, I think, well, not I think, I know that we all have compassion. It's a mental factor that is just part of our mind. You know, it's not something newly created that somebody glued onto our mind stream. And I think, so we all have that compassion, and we all want to act out of compassion. I think everybody here admires compassion. And yet, we often find so many obstacles to acting out of compassion, don't we? Yeah? What's maybe the biggest obstacle?
Anger.
Anger, you got it. Yeah? What's the opposite of compassion? It's anger. Yeah? So compassion wants sentient beings to be free of suffering. Anger wants them to suffer. So, you know, anger is one of our biggest enemies to really fulfilling our own spiritual aspirations. Yeah? So it's not that we're bad when we're angry, and it's not that we're not supposed to be angry. Anger happens, but the thing is, what are we going to do when it happens? Do we feed our anger? Do we nurse our anger? Do we treasure our anger? Do we make sure everybody around us knows we're angry? Yeah. Do we stay stuck in our anger until somebody apologizes to us? And if nobody apologizes to us, does our anger just turn into some kind of bitter hatred deep inside of our heart? And what happens if that happens? Huh? So when we cling on to our anger, are we being a friend to ourselves? No, we're not helping ourselves when we cling on to our anger. We may have lots of good reasons. Our mind has so many reasons for being angry. Full of reasons. I am right. That's a good reason to be angry. Why is being right a good reason to be angry? Just because you're right, why do you need to be angry? Why is it a good reason to be angry? We justify our anger if I'm right. But why is that a good reason to be angry? Yeah, tell me. I mean, we all do it, don't we? I'm right. So what is our mind thinking at that time? What are we thinking? Why is being right a good reason to be angry? I'm more important than the other. Yeah. Or I'm right. I know better than the other. They're stupid and they're not listening. And so the way to get them to listen is to be angry at them. Okay? Now, does anger get people to listen to what you're saying and accept that you're right? Never. Never. So anger is looking like it's going to be our friend. Yeah, I'm right. I'm going to help them because they're so dumb. And if I get angry at them and yell or stomp away or whatever my trip is, then they'll realize that they're wrong and I'm right. And that's how I benefit them. But they don't realize, when we get mad at other people, they don't realize that they're wrong and we're right. They get more convinced that they're right and we're wrong.
That just shows their ignorance.
Yes. So we get more angry at them because we're really trying to help them by showing them we're right. And they're really so dumb that they really don't get it. So we get more and more angry at them. Yeah, and we get righter and righter. And are we happier and happier? No, we're more and more miserable, aren't we? Yeah? And then our whole life begins to feel like there's this me here who's right, who knows everything, against this world. You know, it's me against the world, and the world is all wrong. And I can't trust the world because it's wrong, and it's wrong because it doesn't agree with me, and I'm right. And so we create this scene whereby we isolate ourselves from everybody else. We isolate ourselves in our rightness. Yeah? So then we can sit all alone and be right. And be totally miserable. And be quite arrogant in the process because we're the only ones who are right and everybody else is wrong. And so we're not only right, but we're also the best. And then we wonder why we're not happy. We wonder why we find it difficult to connect with people, which is what we all want to do, I think, is to have connection with other sentient beings that are healthy and beneficial. Okay, so we have this compassion. We want to act out of compassion, and then our own mind sabotages us and prevents us from acting with the compassion that we have inside. Okay? So it's not that we're our own worst enemy. It's our afflicted mental states are our own worst enemy. We are not our afflicted mental states. They are adventitious. Okay, they can be eliminated. But those are the things that are our real enemy. So not to blame other sentient beings, and not to blame ourselves, but to point the finger at the real enemy, which is the mental afflictions. Okay? Now, one reason that we have for ordaining, because this is a course on exploring monastic life, is that we want to attain liberation. We want to be free of our mental afflictions. Yeah? And so this is kind of the bottom line motivation for ordaining. It's not to sit in the front row. It's not to wear maroon and bright orange robes. It's not to belong to the club that you see around you. You know, the real reason that we want to ordain is because we want freedom. We want liberation. Okay? So if we really want liberation, we have to be willing to admit, well, we have to first see that our afflictions are what's preventing us from being liberated. And when our afflictions are active, we have to be willing to admit that we're under the influence of afflictions. Yeah, we have to sincerely want to change our mind. So we ordain because we're not perfect, and we know we need help in subduing our own mind. Okay? So we come in with that kind of knowledge. You know, I'm here because I want to subdue my own mind. And that sounds so good when our mind is peaceful and clear. But the moment somebody says something we don't like, it's, well, yes, I want to subdue my mind, but my mind is not afflicted right now. Their mind is. Isn't it? Isn't it? Yeah? Isn't it? It's always the other person. And my mind does not have afflictions. I'm just right. they're the afflicted one. Yeah? And so here's where we get stuck, because our deepest spiritual aspiration is to be free from the afflictions. But when the afflictions rise in our mind, we cling on to them. We don't want to give them up. Yeah? Somebody tries to give us kind advice, and to help us. It's like, ugh, are you telling me what to do? You see why my mother called me Sarah Bernhardt?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm good at it, huh? Yeah. So, up here we know what we want to do, but it's so hard to really open our heart. When our mind's under the influence of afflictions, and admit that there's affliction in our mind, and to admit that we're wrong. Oh my goodness, how can I ever say I'm wrong? We feel like saying we're wrong is the greatest sin in the world. Yeah. If you can't say you're wrong, then it's going to be very difficult for you to be a monastic. Because it's all about seeing how we're wrong and seeing how our afflictions are tricking us and are not telling us the truth. Yeah, so we have to be willing to be wrong. And we also have to be willing to acknowledge that we're wrong and that we make mistakes. Because twice a month we have posada, and we tell each other in the Sangha the things that we made mistakes about. And the things, where we were wrong. And we tell each other specific instances when we did that. And if we're not willing to admit we're wrong, we're going to have a really hard time every 2 weeks when it's time to do confession. Because we're not going to have anything to say except, I was right. But the thing is, everybody in the community knows that we're wrong. And we know that we're wrong. Underneath it all, don't we know we're wrong? When we're putting on the thing, underneath it, it's like, can't this all go away? I don't really want to admit I'm wrong. Okay? So we have to be able to say, I made mistakes. We have to be able to say, I got angry and I regret getting angry. We have to be able to say, I want to be compassionate. And please excuse me, because sometimes my mind just gets overwhelmed with anger or whatever it is. But we have to say to the Sangha, please help me. Yeah. When I'm angry, when I'm stubborn, when I'm not listening, please be patient with me, but please help me. Yeah? And then when they help us, we have to be willing to accept the help. What we usually think when we say, please help me, is, please leave me alone. Yeah, Sangha, please help. My mind is angry. Please help me. I.e., leave me alone. Get off my case. If we as a community ignore other people's mistakes and allow them to continue to do those mistakes, are we being kind and compassionate to them? Are we helping them actualize their deepest spiritual wish to be liberated from their afflictions? If we just, because what they say at that time is, leave me alone. And if we do that and we let them just be afflicted and say, okay, doesn't matter, Can't talk to that person anyway? Is that kindness to them? It's not, is it? It's not kindness. Okay? So the Sangha has to come back and say, excuse us, dear, you're wrong. We may not say it like that. We may say, what's bothering you, and, what story is your mind making up, and what do you think you can do about this? No. But why do we come to you? It's because we see that your mind's afflicted and that you're struggling with it. Yeah? So when the Sangha comes to you and tries to help you, realize that they're helping you. Don't think of them as, oh God, just leave me alone. Yeah? I just want to be alone. Get out of here. All these awful sentient beings. I just want to be compassionate and meditate on compassion, and these sentient beings are driving me crazy. Okay? So this is a struggle for all of us. Okay? It's a struggle for all of us. But why do we voluntarily choose to enter the monastic order? Nobody's forcing us. We're doing it voluntarily. Why are we choosing to do this? Are we choosing to do it because we want to be right and show everybody else we're right? Or are we doing it because we want to free our own mind and help others free their minds? Yeah. So it's really important to keep coming back to our motivation. Why am I here? To overcome my afflictions. And so when your afflictions are going crazy, it's we have to create the habit of saying, I'm under the influence of affliction right now. And it's so difficult to do that. Yeah? So it's hard when we're angry to admit we're angry. It's hard when we have attachment to admit we're attached. Yeah? I remember one time in one monastic community I was living in, there was some attachment going on between one monk and one nun. And, somebody told the teacher of the community, who then, I don't know if he made a comment or, one of the other people made a comment. Oh, those two people were so angry. They were so angry. Oh, somebody told Lama that there's attachment. And, there's no attachment here. There's no attachment between us. If that wasn't attachment, I don't know what is. But they didn't want to admit it. Yeah? I don't have any attachment to that person. They're just a good Dharma friend. Huh? But there's attachment. Yeah? So it's a thing of, kind of trying to open ourselves up. And it doesn't mean that what everybody says about us is right, but we should at least listen and check it out, And, if it's the community as a whole that's saying something to us, we really need to listen. There's one, in our precepts, there's different categories of precepts. The first category of precepts, if you break it, you are excluding yourself from being a Sangha member. You are leaving the community. The second category of precepts, the Sangha Visesa, many of them you have, the Sangha community admonishes you, and if you don't listen to the admonishment, then that creates the break. And that's a very serious one if you have a Sangha Visesa, because then you have to do this penance away from the community, and to be rehabilitated into the community, you need 20, for the monks, you need 20 other monks to get together. For the nuns, you need 20 nuns and 20 monks, and then you need to admit your fault in front of them, and then you get rehabilitated. So it's a real serious and embarrassing thing. Yeah. So it really makes you try and think of, I don't want to commit that kind of fault. But one of the big things in there is if we don't listen to admonishment. Yeah, the community says, this is a fault, and we're saying, no, it's not. Don't tell me. Okay, and sometimes what we do when that happens is we then accuse the community, and it's right there in the precepts. You can read it. I don't have the Posada with me right now, but it's right there. You accuse the community. The community's bias. The community's filled with anger and greed. They just cherish they just cherish their friends, and they're partial to everybody else. It's not fair. That's one of the first things we learn as kids to say, isn't it? It's not fair, isn't it? As soon as your brothers and sisters, it's not fair. I said that all the time. I was the oldest child, and then my brother got to do things. I had to fight to be able to do them. Not fight, but I had to push because they were more protective of me. And then he got to do them when he was 3 years younger than me. Like, it's not fair. It's not fair. How come I was that old and you didn't let me do it? How come you let him do it? Huh?
He's a boy.
Not just that.
They usually started that way.
Well, yeah, that was probably part of it too. But, but there were other things where it wasn't that way. But, but then he would say, when I got to do something and he didn't, he would say, it's not fair. Why does she get to do this and I don't? Yeah? Do you remember saying that to your parents regarding your sister? All the time. It's not fair. So we say that to the Sangha too, the whole community. It's not fair. Yeah? You're biased towards so-and-so. You're biased against me. It's not fair. Yeah? And then we want to go to the UN Council on Human Rights and complain. This community isn't giving me my fair rights. My fair rights means I'm right. Isn't that? Okay. So we really have to look out for these kinds of things, Why are these things right there in the Pratimoksha precepts? Because this is what happened during the time of the Buddha. It's nothing new. People getting angry, people, not admitting they're wrong, people accusing the Sangha. There's nothing new about it. It's been happening since the time of the Buddha. Okay? But we want to do our best, not to do it. Yeah? Why? Because we want to be happy. Yeah? And happiness, being right is not happiness. Being free of afflictions is happiness. Okay? I think you need to put that one on your computer screen. Yeah? So, when your computer screen revolves. Okay? So, yeah. So it really has a lot to do with what is our motivation for ordaining. And people come to the Sangha with so many different motivations. And you see it, right in the suttas. Now, some people just saw a monk walking, and the monk looked so composed and so calm, and that person said, wow, I want to be like them, and requested ordination. Yeah. Generally, we would say, that isn't, you know, you really need some more understanding. That just, you know. I think the Buddha ordained these people because they did have the understanding that if they wanted to act like that and be like that, then they needed to tame their mind. Yeah, but lots of times, you know, nowadays, because our minds are so foggy, we see people, oh, I want to be like that, and we think all we need to do to be like that is shave our head and change our clothes. Yeah, if I shave my head and change my clothes, then all my afflictions are going to be gone. Yeah, then I get to sit in the front row in my yellow robe and look so holy. Or yeah. Now, those of you who have taken ordination, have your afflictions disappeared since you ordained?
Ask everybody else.
Do your mind still have afflictions?
Worse.
Not worse, you're just noticing them more.
It's like worse.
What?
It does feel like worse. You know, about just what you talked about, I've been there like for a few months, but the past few days, like, you just shared my story. And probably made a lot of stories of the others too, but I was really there. I am still. It's like, but I have difficulty. I see the pride, you know, that tenderness. I don't want to open to it. But when, like, I'm just furious, like, it's so burning inside, I don't know what to do with it. I get lost. What do I do in the moment? Like, I feel it, but the people are still around me. I want to go hide and not to talk anybody. It's just and I asked for help. I did all of those things, but it seems like it's getting worse and worse. Honestly, it's like this morning I got mad at Katya. Zilpa just asked a question. I could have strangled her right there.
But see, the one nice thing is that you admit it. You're saying right now, you know you're angry.
Yes, I did.
You
Katya a few times. I'm sorry. I'm seeing it.
yeah.
I would be apologized every 5 minutes. Feels like.
Mm-hmm. But see, the good thing is that you're willing to acknowledge it. That's the strong point. We all get angry, but you're willing to acknowledge it. Yeah, because you know you're suffering.
I am suffering. What do I do? Please.
At that moment, you take that thing of raspberries and you throw it. When I was a little kid, my dad had a little poker group, and they used to play poker at different people's houses. So one evening they were playing poker there, and I always had to go to bed while they were playing poker. The next morning I woke up and and the wallpaper in the kitchen was all really funny. And I said, "What happened?" And apparently when they were playing poker, one of the men made some wisecrack, and my mother took the pie and threw Oh, so, well, let's see. If you don't want to throw
We're building a new kitchen.
That's why we want the stainless steel walls. You can clean them easily. Okay, so you could either throw the raspberries. Let's see, what's another alternative? You could turn around and walk out of the kitchen and go, I can't stand you, goodbye.
But it's to say, okay, I'm wrong here. You know, okay, now you think you're the best, she did wrong. It's to and go back to that compassion. Because now, right now, I see I'm building hatred right now.
Yeah.
It's getting bad.
Right. And so then you need to stop. And maybe you need to say to the other person, my mind is very afflicted right now. I need to go and calm my mind. Will you excuse me? Yeah, and I'll come back and talk to you when my mind is calmer. Or to say to the person, it depends who it is, I'm really angry right now. Can you help me? I'm angry because I need whatever it is you need. Can you help me? What do you need?
I have difficulty to go to that place.
Yeah. So maybe ask yourself what it is you're needing at that time. Because if you can figure out what you're needing, then you can try and meet your own need, and you can also ask other people for help.
Do you also have a heads up on the raspberries too? Like a duck or...
Yeah.
Without a raspberry.
Yeah. But everybody has that problem, don't we? Everybody. You're in the middle of talking to somebody and anger flares up. You're not the only one that happens to. Everybody else have that happen? Yeah. You're just talking to somebody about maybe how to pick the raspberries, or how to cook the raspberries, or how to spell the raspberry, and you get angry. Yeah, like. Yeah. So what do we do at that moment when we get angry?
Not too much.
Yeah. I mean, one way is just, we know, okay, I don't want to dump my anger on the other person, so I need to keep quiet. Yeah. But I also need to let the other person know that I'm involved and that I care and that I know my mind is afflicted. Yeah, I think it's good as much as we can to let the other person know that. Yeah. And because it's not just a thing of letting the other person know our mind's afflicted. It's acknowledging to ourselves that our mind is afflicted. Yeah, because as long as we can't acknowledge it to ourselves, then we sit and stew in it. And we go over and over the story again. You know how we do that? Yeah, we leave the situation and we go and sit in our room. Then we go back over the story. She said this, and then 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 she said this. And we relive the story again and again and again, don't we? Just circling around it. Each time we do, making ourselves righter and righter and righter and more angry.
But I have an afflicted mind because of her, not because of me.
That's right. It's all the other person's fault.
In my experience, when anger arises, underneath the anger, I always find sadness or fear, like that something hurt. And so for me, like, if I feel anger, it's really a time to like realize that something needs to be felt and held with compassion so that it can.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Some vulnerability that's driving the anger.
Yeah, that we get angry because we feel vulnerable at that point. Either we're attached to something and we're afraid of losing it. We're afraid something unwanted is going to happen. Yeah, we're really sad about something. And so those emotions, we feel quite vulnerable. So what do we do to protect ourselves? Yeah? And so the anger gives us a lot of energy, but it certainly doesn't make us happy. Yeah? So when we think, well, why does the Buddha have us live in monastic communities? Yeah, one of the reasons is so that we can help each other. Yeah.
Reflection that all of us reflect our mirrors.
Yep. That we reflect to each other what we need to work on, don't we?
You want to support the things that are really helpful. Because, like you watch some married couples and some friends, and you watch when their anger happens, their partner a lot of times support the affliction, goes support the jealousy, support this and that. And because we have the same view here about those things, we actually don't support afflictions. We actually, so we have to support the solutions.
Yeah, exactly. We support the solution to the affliction instead of saying, you're right, and supporting the affliction, which is what we want people to say. And sometimes when we're angry, we'll even go talk to other people in the community to get them on our side against this person. Because I'm right, and they did that to harm me. And the more people who agree with me, then I'm gonna get that person. But if we're really good Dharma friends, and if we're really functioning as a Sangha, then, like she said, we don't support the affliction. We support the solution.
This morning I had a talk with Terry about Alzheimer's. Then
About what?
I wasn't sure if I should say the name, but Danny the other day came to me and says, "Why are you angry every day?" So angrily I answered, "I'm not angry every day." And this morning Terry saw my reaction and she came across the table and she like, "Yeshi, look where you are." And I looked at her and said, "Don't go there." But after that, I was able to talk about it, and then sometimes I feel that she's uncomfortable with anger, and I feel that I need to change.
That you need to change.
I need to change that. I can't feel your anger. I can't deal with your anger. Please change. Put a smile in your face and act happy. And I have difficulty with that.
Because when you're angry, you need to work out your angry. You can't just push it down and put a smile on your face. Yeah. But Terry was a really good Dharma friend to you, wasn't she? Yeah? Yeah. And you were very good because you recognized what she was trying to say, and you knew you were angry. You warned her, don't go there. But you knew what she was trying to say and you listened to her. Yeah? So that's the kind of way we want to help each other. Yeah? because she could sense your compassion. Yeah. Whereas if somebody comes, yes, you are so angry, just stop. That's not going to help you, is it? Yeah.
I also think to help each other, and I'm not very good at this, but I now see the wisdom of it, and I'm getting a little better to be conscientious about it, to really let people to have the space, to have the feeling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that the more comfortable I am in working with my own anger, the more I'm able to just be, or at least allow,
Mm-hmm.
the other person has to work through their stuff without me wanting to change or get away from them, which I think, you know, is also how, angry person, get away from them for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But the more that each of us cultivates our own capacity to be with our own negative emotions,
Mm-hmm.
the more space we have to give each other the space to hold it with compassion.
Yeah.
That's my experience. And
Yeah.
I think that's part of the maturity that I feel in the community, but it's taken us time to even start.
Yeah. Okay, so you're saying that when we feel comfortable with our own anger, not comfortable like I love my anger, but we accept that we get angry, then when we're with other people who are getting angry, we don't feel like we need to get away from it or clobber them or change them. We can sit and bear their anger without assuming it ourselves. Without taking their anger on ourselves and saying we're the cause of their anger. But
being too terribly uncomfortable with it.
Yeah.
So uncomfortable you can't be good.
Yeah. But you're angry. That's your right. Yeah. But check up if it makes you happy or not. Okay. So, one of the reasons the Buddha set up the Sangha community is so that we can help each other in this way, you know. And as part of helping each other, we act as mirrors, or we are the rocks in the tumbler that knock off somebody's sharp edge, and they're knocking off our sharp edge, you know. And when we cling to our sharp edges, it hurts when they got knocked off. When we don't cling to our sharp edges, then when somebody knocks them off, we go, thank you. But it's hard, isn't it? We've been with our sharp edges for a long time, and we don't want anybody else to notice we have them. Yeah, other people are not supposed to notice my attachment and my anger and my jealousy and my arrogance. I notice theirs, and I have a right to point out theirs, but they're not supposed to notice mine.
For sure not say anything about it.
Yeah, and definitely if they notice it, they should better not say anything about it. Yeah. Uh-huh.
It was hard because some of the sharp edges helped us survive earlier.
Yes.
They were our friends once.
Yeah.
For some purpose.
Yeah. So this is a very good point that, you know, depending upon our previous environment and how we grew up and our mental patterns, those sharp edges may have been things that we learned to protect us at that time. So they may have worked to some degree to protect us at that time. They didn't work perfectly. Yeah. But they worked to some degree to protect us. And we just got in a habit with them. And nobody ever called us on it before. Or if they called us on it, they were wrong. And, you know, and we didn't have to change because we're right. Yeah, and so it's true. Sometimes we very much cling to those old habitual ways of acting because they served a purpose at one time. But now, living in a Sangha community, those things don't serve a purpose. Yeah? And when we do them, then our Dharma brothers and sisters do not always find it so easy. Yeah, when we're falling into our old habits of how we react. It can become very difficult for the people that we live with. But then that's part of their practice in opening their hearts and feeling compassion for us. But part of our practice is to, start dismantling those old habits.
That fear that part that is afraid to crumble, is that the ego?
Yeah. Because there's something inside of us that says, if somebody sees I have a fault, that means I'm totally worthless. 100% irredeemable. Is that correct? Is that correct? If you have a fault, does it mean you're 100% hopeless? Worthless? It doesn't.
We're all hopeless and worthless.
Yeah. In that case, we'd all be hopeless and worthless. Yeah. But do you see the kind of exaggerated way our mind thinks? Now, if I have this fault, then I'm totally beyond help. So I don't have this fault. Or if I do have it, nobody can see it, and definitely not comment on it. But the thing is, we've got this nose on our face. Yeah. And people see the nose on our face, and people see our faults. And so walking around like this, saying, you're the one with the big nose. I don't have a big nose. That's not going to work. Yeah? And, we have a fault. It does not mean that, everything is wrong with us. It really doesn't. Okay, we have a fault. Join the club. Yeah? I think we need to be able to be kind to ourselves when we recognize our faults. Instead of, I have that fault, how terrible. It's like, well, yeah, I'm a sentient being. I have that fault, don't I? That's why I'm practicing the Dharma. I have the possibility to liberate myself from this fault. And that's why I'm here to practice, because liberation is possible. And so, extend some kindness and compassion to ourselves when we see our faults, instead of, sometimes we're so self-critical. And it just really, that just makes things a whole lot worse. So that's sometimes why I think we need a good sense of humor when we practice. Oh, look what I did. My same old habit pattern. I did it again. Last time I did this, I confessed and I said, I'm going to try really hard not to do it again. And I just did it again. And, some kind of humor or compassion or kindness to ourselves. Yeah? Because these habits, we've had them since beginningless time. They're not going to disappear overnight. And ordaining is not going to make them disappear. It's going to help you to see them more. They're going to be in more vivid technicolor in front of your nose. Yeah? And that's the thing when you live, a big difference, I think, between monastic life and lay life is lay life, like if you're working at a job and you're really fed up with somebody, you go home. Yeah, you don't have to be with that person. You go home, you complain to your spouse, you have a drink, you watch television, you go out for frozen yogurt, or go to the bowling alley or play miniature golf or, go to the disco or whatever it is you like to do. But you don't have to be with that person who is driving you crazy at work. And you have all your distractions right there that you can indulge in, and the rest of your family will join you in doing that. When you live in a monastery, there's no place else to go. Yeah, there isn't. Yeah. And you can't drink, and you can't dance, and you can't sing, and you can't watch television, and you can't go miniature golfing, or to the bowling alley, or to the disco. Yeah. And you're still with the same people who are driving you crazy, because you live with them. And you eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. And you share the same bathroom with them. And in the morning at morning practice, you bow to them. And there's no place else you can go. So then you have two choices. You either change or you freak out. Not freak out like mentally freak out, but you just say, I can't take it anymore. Ciao. Bye-bye. See you later. Have a good life. I'm off to the bar. Or you realize that you have to change. Yeah? But then sometimes we go, oh, I have to change. I don't want to change. But then you come back to your motivation. Well, why did I come here? I came here to change. That's why I came here. I didn't come here to do the same old thing. I came here because I realized that I've been doing the same old thing and it's making me miserable. And I came here because I want to change. So now I got to start changing. And if I change, I'm going to be happier. And if I refuse to change, I'm going to be right where I am right now. For the next 3 countless great eons. Suffering in the same way I'm suffering right now. Yeah, and so that's when you get your courage. That's when you get your courage. And when we talk, in the perfection of fortitude, there's one kind of fortitude, which is the fortitude of practicing the Dharma, to make our minds strong and courageous when we practice, so that we can really work on our stuff. Yeah, and not just kind of crumble and say, give me a joint, I can't handle this. Yeah, or give me a video game, or give me my boyfriend or girlfriend. Yeah, give me something. But instead we make our mind courageous. And I find this is sometimes where reading some of the verses and the prayers and the texts is so helpful. So helpful. Because my mind is like completely crazy, and I sit down and just reciting the refuge formula. It's like, oh, wait a minute, the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, they're my friends. I have friends. These are the ones that I can trust. I can calm down. I don't have to flip out. Yeah? Or you read the 37 practices, or you read the Wheel of Sharp Weapons, or you read one of the texts that you really love, and there it is, your problem right there. Yeah, or put it this way, the solution to your problem is right there. Yeah, when someone says bad words about me throughout the 3,000 great worlds, yeah, what do we do? Yeah. Oh, I don't want to do that. Speak of her good qualities with a loving mind. See her as my spiritual mentor? Bow to her with respect? Really? It's like somebody's asking you to eat shit, isn't it? I can't do that. I don't want to do that. Yeah? And then you remember, but wait a minute, this is the Buddha saying this. Now, I took refuge in the Buddha. It's the Buddha saying this. Maybe I need to think about it a little bit before I reject it. You know. Maybe let's just, you know, maybe I can't speak of her good qualities, but maybe I can at least not speak of her bad qualities. You know, let's go one step at a time. No? And then, you know, I really find that these verses are so helpful. You know, you take refuge and then you start reading some Dharma material and it's like, okay, this is how I want my mind to be. Or you read the King of Prayers, and the King of Prayers is talking about, you know, infinite Buddha fields, and on each atom there's a Buddha surrounded by bodhisattvas, and you know, there's the Buddha giving teachings to these bodhisattvas, and on each atom there's another Buddha giving teachings to bodhisattvas, and you just have that visualization, and then it's like, oh, what was I upset about? I can't even remember it now. You know? I was just in these Buddha fields with all these bodhisattvas. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing, but I was at least watching them and thinking about them and getting the feeling of them. And then, oh, I forgot what I was so upset about. Or you remember, oh, I was so upset about that. Why was I so upset about it? It was really not very significant. But you brought up the thing about how these old techniques worked for us. So what do you do when you are using one of your old techniques?
I was just thinking, one of my biggest, I was just going through an argument this morning in meditation with a friend over if Led Zeppelin was a good band. One of the biggest problems in our relationship is literally this argument.
That's a real serious problem.
Yeah.
I only have that cognitive
And so what is your repeated behavior?
When you were talking about making yourself writer and writer, that's it. It just comes out in all, from everything from bands to like the Dharma, but that issue of rightness and kind of bolstering my identity through that, and the repeated arguments to do it too, in the shower, everywhere, you know, I've done that plenty, and I think, God, I don't know exactly where it came from, but so far, I guess what I do with it is, once again, it's been helpful to sit with it a bit and see some other elements that have come up. And by becoming aware of those threads, the entire picture unravels a bit, or it loses some of its synergy and power over me. But I've really been wanting recently to understand the antidotes more, because I haven't used those. And they're helpful. I really need those.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to come away from the month with that.
Yeah, they are very helpful. Mm-hmm.
I've had this problem, I think, ever since I can remember, but it's kind of been more palpable as I practice, and that is, I really don't like myself. I mean, there are aspects of me that I am really angry about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's this all self-directed, and it's almost like self-hate of some parts of me. How does one work with that?
Okay, so when you see that there's parts of yourself you really don't like, that you almost really hate, or you feel ashamed of, I think it's, one thing that I do is I talk to that part of myself. I realize that it's not who I am, but it's there and it has a voice. And I say, okay, what is it you're really trying to say? What is it you're needing? Yeah. When you do that, what is it you're really wanting? Yeah. And I try and listen to that part of myself, to what it's really wanting and needing. And listen to it with a kind mind. Knowing that listening to it does not mean I'm going to indulge it. But listening to it does mean that I'm listening. It's there. I can listen. I don't have to reject it. I don't have to be angry at it. I don't have to cover it up or hate it. And I also don't have to indulge it. But I can just acknowledge that it's there. And so sometimes there's this one visualization in one of the practices I do where we, it's, the Vajrayogini practice, where we imagine offering our body to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and to living beings, and so on. And or even like in the Tonglen, when you're offering your body to, living beings, your body, possession, virtue to living beings. I create like little caricatures of these aspects of myself that I don't like, and I put them outside as if they were other living beings. I make them, I anthropomorphize them, So I have the little cast of characters. Yeah. And especially, when I'm doing retreat, when afflictions really come up strongly, then is to look, and the little cast of characters, and then I offer my body, possessions, and virtue to them, and I imagine that they become happy. And I get really into, anthropomorphizing these parts of myself that I don't like. Okay, so there's Little Miss Self-Pity. Okay, Little Miss Self-Pity. Okay, she's kind of a blob shape with this round head sticking up with little lace around it. Because she's supposed to be a princess, but nobody realizes she's a princess. So she has this lace around her neck and this little lace cap, and then these big sad eyes. And that's what my self-pity aspect looks like. And then I imagine, kind of like, doing Tonglen or offering my body, possession, and merit to Little Miss Self-Pity. And what does she need? She needs some kindness. She needs some attention. So I imagine giving her everything she needs. And then she feels fulfilled. She feels loved. She feels wanted. And she just disappears. So I find that, it's a way that I did, because in the practices, they often have these things of you make offerings to spirits. And I had a hard time, relating to spirits. But I can certainly see taking my own inner stuff and making it into an external spirit, considering that I make external enemies out of my own internal stuff, But then making offering to them and being kind to them and giving them what they want, instead of battering them over the head and saying, "You're evil, you're horrible, go away, I can't stand you." to see them as another living being that you have some compassion for. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then there's other ones too that so it's kind of fun to do that. We talked about this once before, and what did you make when you made yours?
I was in a really big self-bake hole. So you suggested that I make an effigy of that part. And it was very helpful. So what it really was neediness, really. It was a picture of neediness and craving. And it was so ugly. But it was quite fun to create it and personify it. And it was made out of big rusty screws and potatoes and had this dragon tongue hanging out. And, yeah, I have a photo of it. And the other piece of it was that it was outside of me, and then I put it on the dining room table so the whole community could see it. I think it was Venerable Jigme who came by and said, "How does it feel to have that out of you?" It was like a very appropriate, like, how does it feel to have that outside? And then the direction was quite firm about put it down. Put it down. And I didn't believe her that it was that easy. But in fact, it was. It doesn't, I mean, somehow because I know it now, if it starts to creep in, I know it in a different way than living and wallowing in it for a zillion years.
Mm-hmm.
It's very helpful and shocking how easy, at least that one at that time was ready to get birthed. Was ready to get out of the body. And it really worked.
Can you give a picture of what it is? Let it, drop it.
But what is,
Drop it, let it go. Let it out, whatever.
How did you do that?
how did I do that?
Yeah, a picture, like,
Well, there it was. It wasn't here, it wasn't real. I mean, talk about, I'm really quite hung up on what is an existent, what is a non-existent right now. So it was a non-existent. And yet it had this image and this picture and a whole feeling tone, and it was like almost I could become possessed by it. But it didn't exist. It's not real. And so by really creating something that I could externalize and look at and see, and because I made it with my own hands, I could see that I had made it with my own mind. You get what I mean? And so once it was outside, then just putting it down is just like putting down a bag of potatoes. It wasn't a big deal anymore, right? Does that make sense?
it's, for me it would be how to do it for myself.
Yeah.
Well, try it.
Because sometimes I say to myself, drop it, let it go. And again, my mind, how do I do that?
Yeah. Well, try drawing it or making it.
And
Yeah.
you have to identify what the it is. You
Yeah.
can't put it down until you know what it is.
Maybe that's...
And that's what partly this exercise in creating it helped to do, to get really clear about what it is and what its qualities were and what it, that's
What it felt like inside. And
What it feels, like it goes to my throat, and like it's vulnerable, that vulnerability, like it's...
yeah. Well, see if you can make it. Be an artist and make it. And when we see something really interesting on the lunch table,
I don't want to eat.
yeah. Okay. So let's dedicate.